Hey, I'm Pat Cunningham with Maple Avenue Home Loans, and I have an old buddy of mine, Norm Odeneal, with Keller Williams here, real estate sales extraordinaire, and also does something interesting, which is buying and renovating properties and either holding them for rent or selling them. So he's got a lot of real estate knowledge. I have a few questions. We do renovation financing here. Some people would call this fix and flip. We do anything from very small projects. We've done some full ground up construction. So people buying a lot and building or tearing down existing or building on existing foundations. Thanks for coming today.
Yeah, Pat, good to be here.
It's good to be hanging with someone who knows what's going on. So we provide the money for it, but I don't know enough about the projects and what it's like to be in your shoes. So those are some of the questions. The first thing that I wonder about, and then some of our borrowers wonder about, is what have you found best for finding the property? What's your best, most successful way to find?
I'd say the most successful way to find these properties is something unconventional, where you're maybe, they call it driving for dollars. Maybe you're driving through a neighborhood, you see a property that, in disrepair, you're stopping, knocking on the door, trying to get into a conversation with the seller. The other thing is, you're talking to other agents, you're talking to other neighbors, you're really getting in conversation to let people know what you're looking for.
I've seen, at least with us, we've had a lot of agents use us for this type of financing. Some contractors, because they obviously know what they're doing renovation-wise. What about the agents? I don't feel like a lot of agents either have this tool in their tool belt, or maybe they don't have the confidence to do it. What would you recommend to someone like that? And then I guess also, if I was new to it, could someone partner with you if they had a good project so they could learn once or twice? What do you think about all that?
I think that's great. It's there's a lot of moving parts, and certainly as a licensed realtor myself, there's different ways in real estate to find a passion, find things that fulfill you and allow you to, make a paycheck and earn a living. I'd say number one, definitely get a mentor, or if you have a deal something that you think has potential, call me. Let's talk it through. I can give you some pointers, maybe partner with you on it so we can get it across the finish line. Goes back to that communication piece. If you think you have something, reach out, let's talk about it, and I guarantee you we can, we'll figure it out.
And when you're thinking about some of these bigger projects are, a little bit speculative. You have to you're planning on what the market's going to look like when you go to sell it. You have to get permits, and it takes a while. A lot of our loans are 6 to 12 month loans. So, really 12 months on the long end, unless it's a full up ground construction. We'll sometimes do a little bit longer than that with extensions. But how do you think about the market from a risk standpoint, or what's on your mind when you're thinking, okay, what am I going to sell this bad boy for in 9 months?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a little scary at times because you're putting these numbers together, and it's somewhat of a science. I would say this, in real estate investing, that you make your money when you buy the property. Okay. So if you're overpaying for the property on the acquisition, there's a very good chance there's not going to be enough left for you when you're trying to exit the property. So number one thing, I would try to do everything you can to get the property for the best price when you acquire it. Okay. So this would help your planning.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think someone who's maybe desperate or to do it may overpay, and then they're just scrambling, right? Trying to cut costs with contractors, which usually that price may go the other way. Usually doesn't go lower, right?
Doesn't go the other way. Yeah. The other thing is, a lot of folks, if you haven't done construction either at home or with a friend, or know what's happening over the last, say, 10 years, prices have skyrocketed. Things cost way more than you think. There's several local contractors that I could introduce you to that would go to the property with you, help you do a rough budget before you make your bid. This will be very, very helpful in the planning.
And that's a good point, because when we're doing these loans, we need to know what's up with the property, but we also ask what's called a scope of work, which is a written, detailed plan of what you're going to do to the property, how much it's going to cost, who you're going to use to do it if you're not a contractor yourself, because that goes into the value. Remember, we're loaning based on future value of this property, and without that scope of work, we don't know what the value is going to be. That's a big part of it.
Absolutely.
As you're doing, we've done a couple with you in the last year, really neat projects. What kind of surprises or hurdles or gotchas have you run into as a real estate investor?
Yeah, there's always those, right? A little bit of everything so far, from neighbors not being quite happy to the work being done right next door, checking up on my permits. Also, once you start opening up walls, you see some plumbing that's dated and just need to be replaced anyway. So you're going to have cost overruns. You could have delays in terms of deliveries on construction materials. And then also, something that was a big surprise pretty recently on one of these was we had a low appraisal. The market is accelerating where prices are going up. And because we changed the property so much, the appraiser just couldn't wrap their head around it. Ended up using some numbers from last year and giving us a real low appraisal. That was a total shock. You were very helpful in giving me some guidance on how to get that appraiser to come out and take another look at it. But that was a shocker. I just didn't expect appraisal issues in a rapidly accelerating market.
Yeah, it's when you're not in a cookie cutter market,
Yeah.
and they have to use the last probably three
Yeah.
sales. I can see that a little bit when you're adding square footage.
Yeah.
Do you ever worry I'm not going to be able to get a permit for this? How does that work?
Yes. I mean, all those things. The thing is, it's easier to modify an existing house without adding square footage. If you add square footage, you could be opening up additional requirements, like stormwater management could be an issue if you start adding additional square footage. Also, if you add additional square footage, you want to add it on the above ground level. Appraisers are really just calculating using the above ground square footage for these numbers. So that's something to look at. The other thing is adding space. You can figure over $200 a square foot just to put on a little extra square footage. It's got to make sense.
Is that pretty high end now?
That's pretty, well, it's enough high end that it's going to eat into your profit real quick, right? I try to use an existing footprint and bring everything back to life, make it like new construction on the inside. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. How do you think about when you're looking at a project, how much, because you can go crazy with upgrades.
Yeah.
How do you think about, do I do something kind of here? Do I do something middle? Do I go crazy?
Sure.
What's your thought?
Well, it's easy to go crazy because I have a passion for this. I see the aesthetic and I love it. I love to put my own taste and let's make it a super nice experience for the next buyer. At the end of the day, I don't think you got to kind of match the neighborhood, right? And you don't want to put in the highest of high-end appliances when the buyer's expecting at this price point maybe just a nice upper-end appliance. That's a lot of those decisions, and you definitely have to have some keep yourself on track.
I built one house one time. Do you ever get decision fatigue from picking like little things out?
Yeah, definitely. There's a certain look you're going for, and you can't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Okay, you gotta get it done. Usually people in this world are using capital, and they're not just doing cash for everything, because then they can do a couple projects at the same time if they borrow. So as a real estate investor, I think it's finding that right amount of leverage, because this money's not cheap. Short-term bridge financing, short-term construction financing, it's not cheap. So you have to kind of get in and get out probably as fast as you reasonably can to reduce your interest costs and improve your margins on the sale. You've probably looked at some pretty rundown properties and things like that.
Sure.
What's the craziest thing you've seen in the last, it doesn't have to be stuff you've sold, like just regular resale stuff. Anything crazy in the last decade?
Last decade for sure.
Any dead bodies or anything?
I would say maybe short of dead bodies, but definitely hoarder situation. Definitely, home is in disrepair. You can't believe people are living here. I would say, just so you know, the worst properties that I've seen, unsafe to live in, you shouldn't be walking around. I've still sold those properties and seen those properties sell with multiple offers. Our market is so tight. There's a buyer for every type of property out there. Vacant land is super popular, in our area. So we're blessed to live right here. Anything that comes to market in Northern Virginia, there will be someone interested in it, probably more than one person.
I know some of this is speculative, and you're good at this, and I would be nervous myself because I don't know the real estate market as well as you do. What opportunities do you see in the next year? Let's say I was thinking about doing this, or I flipped the house 10 years ago, but I haven't done anything lately. What's your feeling with the market and what opportunities do you see in the next year or two?
Absolutely. Well, I would say there's definitely going to be opportunities. And I say that because not everybody wants to sell their home renovated. There'll be folks that just want to sell kind of as is and move on. That's the perfect space for an investor to step in and then bring that product back to the market repaired. I think that opportunity is going to be here for just a long time, that kind of scenario. The other thing I see happening is, costs are going up quite a bit in our area. So the sooner you buy and hold on a piece of property, I just think that's the long-term play here. With borrowing some money from your company, Pat, it's allowed me to buy and hold some properties. And if you own, say, 3, 4, 5 properties, that could fund your retirement, that could fund your kids' retirement, that could change your family's history. So I would seriously think about picking up an investment property. Even if you had 3, 4, 5, that could set you up nicely for the rest of your life, for generations. It could start that simple, just a second, third property. And this is the exact way to do it.
Do you have to have, let's say I'm good with real estate, but I don't know much about the contracting part. I mean, how hard is it to find a contractor, or do you have to interview a lot of them, or what's your process
question.
like for that?
So being in the business has allowed me to be next and meet a lot of contractors. So I guess I'm constantly interviewing. That's why it's so important for the public. If you're buying, selling, thinking about doing this, reach out to me, reach out to you, because having a conversation with us is free. And I can give you some guidance, best practices, and smooth out a lot of rough edges and point you in the right direction so that you too can do this. And I think everybody should be doing it.
Yeah, we're excited to see how this project you're working on now, the latest one. I'm excited to see you sell that. I know it's a super tight market, so I know you're going to do well on it. Thanks for the advice, and thanks for coming in. And it's always been good to work with friends, and appreciate you sharing some of your knowledge with some of the other real estate investors that we meet.
Awesome. It's been great to be here, Pat. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.